Good morning and thank you all for coming. My name is Gigi Chan, and I study in the Faculty of Business. If I say the words China White or K-Guy, do you know what I'm talking about? Well, these are both terms for illegal drugs. China White is a term for heroin, while K-High is a street term for ketamine. Do you think these drugs are a problem for teenagers in Hong Kong? If it's a problem, what are the solutions to get teenagers off drugs? Well, this is the focus of my presentation here today, the title of which is, Illegal Drugs in Hong Kong, Problems and Possible Solutions. My presentation, which will last around 6 minutes, will first look at whether drugs are a problem in the city. I will then examine the effectiveness of some of the solutions that are in place. I'll finish with a short conclusion, and at the end there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. To my first point, the perception that drugs are a problem in Hong Kong among teenagers. If you read newspaper reports, or if you look on government websites, you would believe that drug abuse is rampant in secondary schools, especially in the New Territories. CNN, the international broadcaster, recently ran a report that talked about a 16-year-old Hong Kong boy making 2 phone calls for delivery, one for pizza, the other for the drug ketamine. In another case, 2 teenage girls were found semi-conscious in a car park after overdosing on ketamine, and, finally a 13-year-old boy joined a gang and was given free ketamine. Okay, these are all serious cases, but do they represent the reality of Hong Kong teenagers? If I were to ask for a show of hands in this room of those who have taken drugs, perhaps just one person would raise their hand, and he or she is twice the age of all of us. So, I doubt whether abuse of illegal drugs is such a serious problem in Hong Kong. Okay, in my next point, I'd like to look at some evidence of illegal drug abuse in Hong Kong. I think the best source is from the Narcotics Division of the Security Bureau in the HKSAR government. The data from that organization does not show any big increases in drug use, and actually, for those under 16, and those between 16 and 20, the number of users has gone down in recent years. Also, if you look at absolute numbers, in 2010, there were 148 new ketamine users among males under 16 years old. While this is 148 too many, in terms of the total population in Hong Kong, the number is actually very small. If we look at users for other drugs, the numbers get extremely low. For example, there were 20 new users of cannabis who are under 16 in 2010. So, I think this evidence shows that drug abuse among teenagers in Hong Kong is not a serious issue, and rather it is sensationalism by newspapers and other media that makes it appear so. Okay, well now, I'd like to look at solutions that have been put in place in Hong Kong to combat the so-called drug problem among teenagers. I'm gonna look at 2 policies, first drug testing in schools, and second methadone clinics. Drug testing in schools started as a pilot scheme in Tai Po secondary schools around 2010. Supporters of the testing say that the pilot scheme has shown results, with a decline in the number of young drug abusers, indicating its deterrent effect. However, others say that it's failed to identify hidden cases. While I think the deterrent effect can be important, I don't like the labeling of students as potential drug abusers even before there is any evidence. It's for this reason that I prefer these schemes to be kept voluntary. My final point today is about the methadone clinics in Hong Kong. Methadone clinics are an unrestricted, non-residential treatment program provided by the Department of Health. This program aims at assisting drug abusers to abstain from heroin by taking a reasonable dose of methadone at methadone clinics. But, are the clinics successful? Methadone is a drug which produces a heroin-like effect. It is addictive, and overuse can result in overdoses and even death. So, is it any better than taking heroin? Also, a problem with the clinic is the high rate of dropouts, those who start attending, but then fail to attend for 28 days. Finally, data shows that even after attending clinics, the unemployment rate of users is still high, so how effective are these clinics? I'm not sure, and I don't really have time in this presentation to look further at this, but I do think it is an interesting area for further research. Okay, so that's all for my presentation. Turning now to my conclusion, I'd like to go over the key points of my presentation today. I first looked at the perception of drug abuse in Hong Kong, and that it appears to be overstated by the media. This aspect is supported by my second point about the actual figures for drug abusers in our city. I then looked at two possible solutions for the perceived problem: drug testing in schools and methadone clinics. It is my opinion that drug testing should remain voluntary, while a lot more investigation needs to be done into whether methadone clinics are effective or not. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you again for listening. Now, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Any questions?
Yes, what do you mean by hidden cases?
Good question. I'm glad you asked that. By hidden cases, I mean that those drug abusers that are not found by the drug testing. So, you could have a case where a school has drug testing, and nobody tests positive, and then the school thinks that means there are no drug abusers in the school. But actually, there are, it's just that they are not detected. That is a hidden case. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Any more questions?
Yes, do you think methadone clinics should be closed down?
Thanks for the question. Should they be closed down? Certainly not. As I said in my presentation, I think further research needs to be conducted as to whether the clinics are effective. Only then can we be sure about what direction we should take in the future. Is that okay?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, that's the end of my presentation today. Thank you all for your questions and thank you again for coming. Goodbye.